Welcome to part two, module one of Time Bomb. Part two is going to be all about, we're going to start covering everything that you need to in order to start understanding what your time is worth. So part two, module one, we're just going to do an overview of the section, and then we're going to start the part, and we'll start getting into the actual calculations. So everybody really should know what their time is worth, and that's in business, outside of business. Like, you should be able to assign some sort of value to everything it is that you do. And that's, a cost, you're making money, whatever it is, there's a value to everything. There's going to be a lot of numbers that we're going to really cover in this, and they're going to be different approaches to understanding what that value is and how you should value it. So get your pen and paper. We've got a couple of PDFs and worksheets out there for you. In addition to the actual worksheet, the Excel file that's going to be where you're calculating everything, there's going to be examples as well, so that you can kind of follow through as you're calculating your numbers, because it can get a little overwhelming, but if you just take it slow and just kind of think of everything as you go, it should be easy enough. So there's a limit of, there is a limit to the amount of work that you can do every week. And so this, and this isn't really related to the amount of sleep or time you need away from work. It's a lot of people feel like because they have the time, they should be in their business, they should be doing something, anything. And at some point you are not being productive. If you're just in there doing work, you're constantly tweaking, constantly doing this or that. Like, we're sending out that one more tweet or writing one more blog. Like, if you're going to do one more thing, is that really going to make an impact? Or could you have taken that 30 minutes, that 60 minutes, whatever it is, and applied it somewhere else, whether it is doing something that adds value, or maybe it's just relaxing. That's totally fine. Just because everybody else is spending their Fridays and Saturday nights working hard doesn't mean that you have to. You can have a life. There's nothing wrong with that. And then just think about the fact that perfection can lead to a lot of problems down the road. We've worked with a lot of people where they don't want to, whatever it is, launch a website. They don't want to release their product. They don't want to send out that blog because they want to make sure that every single little bit is perfect. That is going to kill you. It is okay if you are 90, 95% complete with whatever it is that you're doing. You want to get it out there, and then you can kind of tweak as you go, but don't over tweak. You don't want to over engineer everything. You make it, and this sounds terrible, but make it good enough that you can do what you do best. So you want to be as good as you can with your service or your product, but if the grammar isn't perfect in your blog, it's not that big of a deal. If the sound, the audio on your podcast is terrible, again, not a big deal. You are not a professional video recorder. Don't let perfection get in the way of you actually delivering. And one last thing in terms of this is you can only get so far ahead before you essentially are just going to create work for yourself down the road. So what I always talk about with this is, if you're going to, let's say, create your plans for the coming year, like you can map out the 12 months, you can map it out by quarter, that's fine, but you don't want to get into the details, into the minutia of December when you're still in January, because a lot can change between January and December. So as you get closer, that thing that was way off in the distance starts to kind of become more focused, and that's when you start adding the details. But if you're working on like the very in-depth, the very detailed parts of plans that are like 12 months away from here, you're probably going to have to do rework. That doesn't mean that you can't consider them, you can't write them down, whatever it is, but things change, as we all know, especially over the past, over 2020, let's say. So just keep that in mind. So we got two different numbers that we're going to have you kind of consider when you're doing this. And it's going to be your idle rate and your running rate. And we're going to think about this in terms of like driving a car, exercising, or whatever. So your idle rate, you want to think about, it's calories you burn just by existing. So just by sitting in a chair, staring at a lake, you're burning calories. Not as much as you would be if you're running a marathon, but you're still burning calories. You're still using energy. So it's not taxing, but it's still costing you something just to be there. So when you're thinking about this with your business, this is going to be the time that you use things that aren't related to your business. And this is going to be spending time with your family, doing your laundry. This includes sleeping. This includes vacations, all of that. This is the stuff that it's not adding value to your business directly. Now, getting sleep will add value to your business, because if you're more productive because you got enough sleep, then et cetera, et cetera. We're not going to get that far into it. We're just thinking about like, these are the things that you need or want to do that don't really correspond with adding value or working in your business. And one last thing, sleep is very important. So make sure that you're getting enough sleep. We've got a couple of podcasts on physical and mental health. You should check those out. So don't forget to sleep, exercise, eat right, etc. That's everything that a life coach will teach you. So you're welcome. That's on us. And lastly, your idle rate. This is going to be a subjective calculation. We're going to get into subjective and objective calculations in the next module, the next two modules, I believe. But this is, you're just going to kind of make some estimations based on assumptions, and that's fine. It's a subjective. It's not an exact science. Now, your running rate, again, this is the stuff that, like, these are the calories you're burning when you are running, outrunning a marathon, or you know, if you're racing your car down the highway, that's your running rate versus your idle rate when you're sitting at a stoplight. This is the time that you spend working in and on your business. It could be a task value, it could be a non-value, but this is you spending time in your business, and it's making a sale. It's sweeping the floor because you don't want to pay a janitor to come in and do that at the end of the night. And these are going to be much more objective. You should be able to assign real dollar amounts to these. So this is, if I spend an hour working on this sale, I can make this much money. If I spend 5 hours a day creating these products, I can make this much money. If I spend 30 minutes at the end of the day entering in information into QuickBooks, I could save myself $50 instead of outsourcing it to somebody else. So these are the things that you're doing in your business, in and around your business, that are directly related to your business. In the next two sessions, we're going to cover the different tasks that you're going to complete throughout the day. And it's like, whether that's selling your services or playing with your kids. And right now, all that we want you to do is start thinking about the different types of tasks that you do throughout the day, and go ahead and start mentally bucketing them into value add, non-value add. These are things, wants versus needs, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to get into time and costs in the next two modules in this part. And then in parts 3 and 4, we're going to dive more into identifying everything that you're doing, bucketing, and all of that. So that's it for module 1 of part 2, and get ready for modules 2 and 3, because we're going to start calculating some numbers.